how do you think, especially in this age that's so dominated by technology, that this concept of being able to kind of reroute and look into ourselves is impacted by that?
Okay, I love this question, and I want to answer it like in a sense of the tech side of things, right? Like when we look at technology, everyone's usually like looking for when's the next model or the next version of something coming up, right? So like the next. And in a sense, we're doing that to ourselves. Like, when am I gonna like be we're looking for like the future version of ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you really break it down and look at, for example, even like the iPhone or Apple products, right? There was a generation 1, which if it wasn't for that, then the next wouldn't have happened, and the next wouldn't have happened. So in a sense, it's like honoring that the new products that are coming, yes, they're great, but they wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for that first model, the generation 1, like the ancestor to whatever technology we're talking about. So in that way, I feel like we are getting an opportunity to see the value of that, of like what came before us. For example, say you're in a family dynamic and everyone's like wrapped up and they're more on their social media stuff, communication's happening, things are being shared that like it's like triggering to all that stuff can happen, right? So instead of making it about what's going into the tech, why not see it as like, oh, that's a mirror for what's going on in that human being. So why don't I like remove that and just look back at the reflection and what is this person trying to show me, or what can I see in them that they're putting into that tool that I can look back at the human. And it kind of, you can only do that for another when you've learned to do that for yourself.
Welcome to this week's episode of Akoni Tech Talks. Joining us today, we have Harsha. It's a pleasure to have you here. There's a lot to unpack in this episode, but I'm really excited for it. So we'll start with Revive Community. Now, tell us what inspired you and your partner Aaron to create the community, and how did your own experiences shape it?
It's like the culmination of our entire relationship. We birthed this as like the love child of everything we've been through. Because when Aaron and I first got together, we were both in a very like wounded place within ourselves, carrying things from our upbringing that were really polar opposite to one another. And so there was a lot of clash right off the beginning. But the gift in all of this is when we got together, we both stepped into the personal development field at the same time. And so part of like our journey has been going to these different communities, different seminars, being a part of different groups. And that really has been a saving grace for us in evolving and breaking through the obstacles that inevitably every relationship faces. And so we wanted to create a community that can honor all that we learned in the sense of the value of being a part of a group of people and having facilitators and guides that can show you the way, but inevitably know that like we aren't the ones giving you the answer. It's within the people who are in the community. So we like to say like you are the medicine, and within the community is when you get to show and bring your medicine into the space for one another. So Revive Community is essentially like the child that we birthed of through all of the trial and error of our relationship, creating a space where people can really get their own solutions for themselves, knowing that they're part of a community that is there to support in a way that it's just a full sense of empowerment. It's an empowerment community, and that's really been valuable for us to say like no one actually has had any of our answers. We are our inner being kind of called in these spaces to show us that everything that we've been looking for, it's been in here anyways. And so we just now create that because we felt like it was a missing piece in the industry.
It's clear you've really both invested yourselves fully, and you're totally present in what you do, and that allows you to connect with people in a stronger and more meaningful way. But the way technology is evolving as well, it's added barriers to communication. I mean, how does the kind of concept of, we kind of touched on generational healing, ancestral healing. How do you think, especially in this age that's so dominated by technology, that this concept of being able to kind of reroute and look into ourselves is impacted by that?
Okay, I love this question, and I want to answer it like in a sense of the tech side of things, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like when we look at technology, everyone's usually like looking for when's the next model or the next version of something coming up, right?
Yeah.
So like the next. And in a sense, we're doing that to ourselves. Like, when am I gonna like be we're looking for like the future version of ourselves, and there's nothing wrong with that. But when you really break it down and look at, for example, even like the iPhone or Apple products, right? There was a generation 1,
Mm-hmm.
which if it wasn't for that, then the next wouldn't have happened, then the next wouldn't have happened. So in a sense, it's like honoring that the new products that are coming, yes, they're great, but they wouldn't even exist if it wasn't for that first model, the generation 1, like the ancestor to whatever technology we're talking about. So in that way, I feel like we are getting an opportunity to see the value of that, of like what came before us, where is the version that we're in now actually built on all the versions that came before us. And if there's something that we need to evolve, maybe we can look at like where it came from to see like what direction can the next version of us go into,
Yeah.
So there's like a lineage based perspective I think we can see the parallel in. And those who are more in like the tech side of things, I hope that perspective can just bring like why it's important to look at that, why it's important to look at your past as much as it is to look at your future.
Mm-hmm. And with tech, we have a constant flood of information right in the palm of our hand, and people may feel disconnected from their past selves because of that. What would you say are some sort of tech-friendly practices that you would recommend to kind of help individuals reconnect and even heal?
One kind of like unique way, I haven't done this myself, but I feel that with AI right now, it's like this beautiful mirror that it provides us. So a tech-friendly way. Normally I would say like disconnect from technology for a little while, like go out into nature and then like get with the technology of nature, because that's its own kind of tech, right? And then integrate that back. But in terms of how do you stay with the technology and then do that, well, I think AI can be such a great like best friend type of a thing where one, you can just sort of like put in your story like, okay, well, this was my upbringing, this is something I experienced when I grew up, and I'm looking for like a perspective or a solution, and AI will source all of the information that's available on the web and will give you the answer. And then from there you can start a conversation, and it's like a private conversation in a sense, right? Because you're just speaking it out. And for those who may not feel comfortable going to somebody with that kind of information, you can start the process of empowering your own like, okay, well, what do I need? I'm feeling this, like what do I need to do? Maybe the AI will say, okay, try this, here's this option, and then you can follow that guide,
It's interesting, we touched on, even the iPhone constantly evolving, there's that next generation thing, tech's always innovating. For people who are working in tech specifically, who might kind of feel a pressure to prioritize that efficiency and innovation over an emotional balance, what would you say are some better ways they can kind of connect with themselves? I mean, I know we talked about perhaps just, the need for disconnect, but is there anything else you would recommend?
It's so interesting to hear efficiency and like I think you said emotional intelligence.
Yeah.
And it's like they're like the way I see it, okay, is like to be more efficient because we as human body, we are a technology, like a really, really advanced technology, which is why we've been able to create these types of technologies, right? Like, where could it come from? We're the ones who created it. So in essence, it's like part of our technology is our emotions. And so to gain the efficiency, if we could only realize that having the emotional space actually makes us more efficient. It's just that we've kind of gone into this like warped tunnel that's sort of taken us away, because technology can't have emotion. Technology doesn't have emotion. We have emotion. So because we're looking at technology and we are now seeing like we want to almost like there's a part of our psyche that wants to be like technology and as efficient as that. But the technology is only one aspect of our technology, which is way more vast. So what I'm trying to say with this is when we can see the importance of our emotional intelligence being part of our technology, that will increase our efficiency to then be able to like expand beyond any other technology that exists and then amplify it and add even more. It's like when you can, there's like, when we can allow our emotions to be freely in our space, we can actually create from a place that's way more creative and way more expanded. And also, right, like most of the time, if you're surrounded by technology, who are you really hiding your emotions from if you're trying to like close that off to like be efficient? Mm-hmm. If you have a little cry on the side to like, I'm like really tired and overwhelmed, like this sucks. Okay, it's done. Now I can get back to my work. No one's really around you to like judge that. It's really we judging ourselves, thinking that's not efficient.
Yeah.
But I would urge anyone who's tried it to like go have that cry, go have that like stomping session of that frustration, and then come back to your desk and notice how much more efficient you are at work versus trying to continue to like keep that back, and then you're just like you're draining yourself, and it's like you can't actually become efficient anymore. Your health starts to deteriorate, all this other stuff starts to happen. It's like actually to be more efficient, like the emotion is the efficiency of the human body. Is how I see it.
Yeah. And one thing with tech and communication as well that, I mean, I'm sure we've all seen it firsthand, is it can kind of complicate relationships. There's sometimes hidden, you read things in a different way, or you become almost too aware of how something's been said. And with a particular emphasis on family for this example, I mean, how do you think tech is reshaping family relationships, and what advice would you give to people who are kind of struggling with that tension?
I would say like really with every answer, like every part of this, the concept that I come towards, it's like the technology is a mirror to us. Like everything is a mirror. Like you are a mirror to me, right? Like you are a mirror to me. This, whatever is happening, when we can bring it back to like how is it reflecting me. So to answer your question, right, like for example, say you're in a family dynamic and everyone's like wrapped up and they're more on their social media stuff, communication's happening, things are being shared that like it's like triggering to all that stuff can happen, right? So instead of making it about what's going into the tech, why not see it as like, oh, that's a mirror for what's going on in that human being. So why don't I like remove that and just look back at the reflection and what is this person trying to show me, or what can I see in them that they're putting into that tool that I can look back at the human. And it kind of, you can only do that for another when you've learned to do that for yourself, right? Like when you can see that how you're using technology and what you're seeing and what's happening here is actually a mirror for what's happening here. Then when you look at your family and whatever they're sharing or doing, you can see it as like, oh, that's a mirror for what's happening with them. And then you kind of remove that judgment, that stigma, and that sort of like whatever's going on that's keeping the disconnect, and bring it back to the humanity behind it all, right?
Another thing with tech, we've talked about that kind of rise of mental health apps and being able to tune into, a mindfulness piece on Spotify, or using an app like Headspace and what have you to support yourself. But there's also online support groups as well for people who want to communicate and have shared interests, or feel a bit more of a safer space to kind of express how they're feeling. What would you say the role of tech has done to kind of make those tools more accessible for people who are, say, working through personal issues or even trauma?
Have you ever seen the movie Her?
I don't think I have.
Joaquin Phoenix. It's like old, like 2012, but it's this movie about AI, and this man like ends up in a relationship with AI because it has a voice of a female, and like it's so, you gotta watch that movie.
Oh, wow.
I think you're gonna love it. But I think of that in the sense of like it can actually mirror the missing pieces in ourselves. the end, it's a cool movie. I feel like that movie is the answer to this question, but it's also like it really opens up this space of the answer is not in the tech.
Yeah.
It's actually showing us the humanity that we're craving. And so the tech can be a bridge. I like to say it's a bridge to the human connection that we are actually craving. And we have our own fears to our own emotions, and so to bring that to anything outside of us can feel, because we haven't even like touched on it for ourselves, to say like, this is what I'm really feeling right now.
I find it so interesting when you say about us as humans being a technology, because we essentially are. And when it comes to, I feel like there's two things to kind of unpack here. With people seem to struggle to be their authentic self, or they feel like they have to behave or act a certain way because there's such a fear of like wanting to fit in or be liked. What would you kind of say to people who are struggling with that, connecting with the true essence of who they are and being their authentic self?
Honestly, that right there, that's the hardest part. That's the main thing. Like that is like the valley of, you know, shadow and death that you kind of have to like go over to then get to the true technology of what you are. Because I know it sounds super cliche, because even with just saying it, it's like but you're being the way that is going to get accepted by others, you're actually feeling very disconnected from yourself. And like like when you go home and you're by yourself, you're like not okay with yourself, which is why we continue to stay so connected with everything and everyone around us, because like deep down we're like, I'm like not really enjoying who I'm being. And this is a part of ourselves that I'm speaking because I've like gone over that, and it's been like, actually it's been the hardest thing to go through in my life, because I had to let go and face a lot of people no longer accepting me and really being like exiled, like socially to a certain degree. But the beautiful thing about this, okay, because I'm making it sound like it's like the worst thing ever, but in that, because even one step towards your true self and your inner technology is like creating a like new wiring system to your true self, that if you believe in like magnetism and law of attraction and all these things, like that is already creating a resonance of like others who are going to accept that, because it does exist right now in the world. There's people, and that's the cool thing about technology, like magic can happen where you think like, oh shoot, just for example, right, say you're an influencer and you've been influencing from a perspective of like, I want to do the thing that everybody's going to like accept me for, but you're like, this is not me. And then you go, okay, I'm in the dark night of the soul, this is not working, I need to make a shift. Super scary, because everything that everyone sees me for is now going to collapse and crumble. All the things are going to happen. What does happen is, as soon as you make that step towards your authentic self, your inner technology, it's like from where you didn't even see, people will come into your life and like be like, no, we're here. Like, hey, nice to meet you. Oh, you're so and so. And it's like, you will see in that interaction, like, oh, wow, this person sees me, and it's gonna like have and slowly that will build, but it requires having the courage to be able to have everything else fall apart. But when even like 100,000 say people fall out of your life, if even one person comes in that's like seeing the true you, when you're in it, you'll see how valuable that is. And like that will be worth it, because then that will just grow and grow and grow. And then sooner or later, you're going to have, again, you'll build that back up to maybe 10,000 people, but they're all like golden connection to your authentic self. And you never have to then trade one for the other. You never have to like give up your true self for the sake of the other, because they want, in fact, what brought you into these new connections is the true self. So now you cannot betray it anymore. It's like this beautiful new reframe that happens.
We move on to the trending in tech round. So there was a recent National Geographic article which said, open a paper or look at a news website and chances are there will be another story about the unstoppable rise of artificial intelligence. So they've called it the Frankenstein-style dilemma, which is associated with the way it's developing and the way it's innovating. But unsurprisingly, as we've also touched on in this episode, AI has infiltrated the wellness sphere in both positive and negative ways. With the rise of AI-driven wellness tech, and that resurgence of, I'd say, traditional methods as well of how we kind of tap into ourselves and work on our healing. Could you say the two approaches to well-being will be meaningfully integrated? Or do you think, is it going in the right direction? Or
I think it has the potential to.
Yeah.
Like it can become like your ultimate assistant, but it's actually just you as your own assistant, because AI picks up on the language you're using, right? So if you give it a command and then you say, thank you, this is great, like da-da-da, you will notice that AI like responds almost like another human.
Yeah.
And so it's learning from us. We are teaching it through our modeling of how we treat it. And so if we want it to grow like a child, if we want it to grow into a being that is supportive and helpful and like functioning in a positive sense, we need to model that to it. And so when we can tap in, coming back again to what are we creating it from, like what energy are we bringing to it, then it does have the potential to grow into something that truly supports us in magnificent ways, especially when we live in a world where there's so many things to do in a day. If you have this like access to a way of creating and a way of sharing that can take the energy that you carry and then like bring it to life in a way that maybe we would have needed. So I think about this is coming in like in the moment. I think about, I went to this art gallery once and it was like all these 19th century like art pieces, and like it's crazy because they're so detailed, they're huge, they're so detailed, it looks lifelike. But it's like, when you look, it's like you don't see the paint. You know how when you paint, you think that like some parts are going to rise up because there's more paint on it? Yeah. It's like a photo, but this has been painted, and it's obviously back when things were very different. So this is when I'm like, how much time do these people have on their hands to do this? Like they just, from morning to night, they probably just stood in front of this canvas and painted. Like that's all they did. In today's world, it's not the case, right? We've got a lot of other things. But the AI that we have developed can offer us like another tool, another access. It's like a revolutionary thing that's here to support us. And just coming back to, it's learning from us. Like this Frankenstein, if we look at it like we're scared of it, it's going to learn to be fearful, and it's going to be scared, and it's going to create itself that way. But if we learn to like appreciate and love it and see it for what it can do, then it will see itself for that, and then it will want to do that for us. Like that's how I see it for wellness, especially. Like if we can have hope for humanity, and then we can bring that to AI will have hope for humanity, and then it will help us in bringing that back online.
And speaking of tech appreciation, that segues us nicely to the final quick-fire round of this or that. So, iPhone or Samsung?
iPhone.
And Spotify or Apple?
Spotify, music, obviously. Yeah.
And Netflix or cinema?
Netflix. I don't even know what cinema is.
Or going to like the movies or something.
Oh, like that. Okay. Ooh. Netflix or cinema? Cinema. Yeah.
And laptops or tablets?
Laptop.
And ChatGPT or virtual reality?
ChatGPT.
And video calls or voice notes?
Video calls or voice notes? Video calls, for sure.
And finally, Harsha, if you could bring back one piece of tech that's either now evolved or it no longer exists, what would it be and why?
Oh, that kind of like stumped me. I kind of want to say like the landline, just like the corded phone where you just like sit and then you can't move anywhere. You just have to sit there and talk. You can't do anything else. I like that. Like then you connect and you're just in that place, presence.
Yeah, I love that. Oh, Harsha, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.